And here it is, Tuesday, the 26th of May. Yeah. April showers bring May flowers. Bullcrap. Bull. It's been raining. The sun's out, though. Everything's going to dry out, hopefully, pretty soon. Pretty soon. Well, the show for tonight, it's free. It's all me. The brain. How does a human being learn to become a killer, become a murderer? It's one of those cool questions. You always wonder where someone learnt it. Become learned, as Homer Simpson would say. Well, before we get into the real deep aesthetic of it, one must understand what Thorndike's rules are. The laws of learning. 3 laws. Simplistic. It applies to everything you do every day. The law of readiness. Learning is most effective when a person is physically, mentally, and emotionally ready and motivated to learn. Yes, ready and motivated. It doesn't have to be that, moment in life for a child or you as an adult where it's a spree of the moment or something that occasionally happens. Everyone's ready to learn something cool, especially if it enchants the brain, enchants the frontal cerebral cortex, the sense of smell, the eye, the interpretation, the hearing, the hippocampus, the limbic system, the amygdala, the brain. Yeah, you're like, ooh, I remember this. It was from my favorite horror movie. Let's talk about this some more. Somebody experienced something close to it. Number 2, the law of exercise. Connections between behaviors are strengthened when practice the use of what you've learned and weakened when the practice is discontinued. Now, what does this mean? That means exercise, doing it. It's inferaneous. It's not an impromptu show. Inferaneous, knowledge, ability, continued craftsmanship. Think of a craftsman. Think of somebody that has a good skill. An auto mechanic. Yeah, I think I can fix your car. I know I can fix your car, and here's how I will fix your car versus I think I can fix your car. The exercise, the using it, you diminish the weakened part of the readiness. You're building on it. You're gaining. You're getting something productive from yourself. You're learning new tricks, new maneuvers. It's kind of like a lazy person. It's kind of like a job, a corporation. Every entity of a corporation or every employer, you're a fool if you hire every lazy-ass person on the job. Keep the laziest person, the laziest, the worthless, most worthless, laziest one. Why? That person will figure out the fastest way to get it done. Mentorship and leadership. I'm not saying let that lazy person that's going to figure out the fastest way to get it done be the one in charge, have a good mentor and a good leader, but the voices, the opinions, the ideas. The law of readiness right there. A new exercise. Next, Thorndike's laws of effect. The law of effect. Learning is strengthened when accompanied by a pleasant or satisfying feeling. The positive reinforcement, the weakened by the unpleasant feeling. Whew. Serial killers. Yes, the joy, the ecstatic, the emotional height, the spree, the amygdala trigger, the fire in the brain, the senses. So we got to understand those too. The law of primacy, intensity, and recency, law of freedom, those are all good. They apply. The state of being first, the strong contact, the one that's the creator, the exciting learning event, the one that teaches you how to be you more than the standard routine. That would be intensity, the law of intensity, something that grabs you, that motivates you. The recency, something most recently learned or remembered is easily recovered or performed. Yeah, it's kind of like the OJT. Some people learn better hands-on versus that voice instruction. Who sucks at a written test? Raise your hand or put a comment in the comment box. We're live on, let me see, YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Kick, and X. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Why? Because it's my show. All the researchers are off. Yeah. All working the hiatus of sociology, psychology, and CJ. All those jobs, all those internships, all that getting ready for me for summer in the class. Criminal investigations, summer, plot 1. So let's get on with what you really showed up here for. How does the brain learn to murder? How does it happen? So, back long ago, not like a Star Wars movie, Pavlov's monsters. Now, Pavlov, it refers to a severe ethical critical criticism system of a Russian physiologist, all right, Ivan Pavlov. Pavlov had subjects, countless dogs, all right, very brutal to dogs. Invasive surgeries, studied digestion, gastroenteritis, the flip instead of, the needle in the, upper thoracic for a lung. You're trying to, put pressure into the gastral side of a canine, kind of like a human too, but not evasive. There's no reason for it. Countless digestion, conditioning, food deprivation, measures of saliva, the changes in the saliva, surgeries that created holes in the dog's throats, in the digestive tracts. Why? Septic, necroptic, rotting from the inside. Think of a serial killer of the past that drills a hole in the head and pours acid into the head so that the frontal cerebral cortex gets affected to the point of, now you're my slave. Everybody remember the big D word for a serial killer? Yeah. Sometimes Pavlov's experiments led to death, all right, transforming his mutated canines into living mutilated monstrosities in the laboratory till the canine or the subject died. Thus, Pavlov's monsters. Now, if you think the canine response to trauma and torment was bad, think of a human's. Think of the child, the teen, the juvenile. Think of the finished product, the full-blown adult in your life, the full-blown adult in society. In order to break this down, we have to break down research. Now, this research goes way back and comes way forward into even 2026. The prefrontal cortex, right up here, ladies and gents, the PFC, all right? The front part of the brain that acts like the CEO of your decisions, your world. Smell, sight, hear, planning, stop, the bad impulse, the good impulse. It often is a smaller and lesser use and activity for people too. Because common sense, right? It's kind of like seeing the snake. Let's pick the snake up. It's a bee. Let's not move for the bee. Or let's go get drunk and drive a car. Yeah. The PFC. The CEO of the brain. There is the location right there. There it is. The lethal level of violence. The perception, the audible, the smell, the signal, the PFC, prefrontal cortex. Think of the PFC, the prefrontal cortex, as the brain's brake pedal. I know, the brain's brake pedal. Kind of hard to understand this while you're driving in a car. But when the brain's brake pedal is weak, the PFC, prefrontal cortex, the emotional gas pedal, the amygdala, right? Just aft of the prefrontal cortex, like kind of center. It can run out of control, cause an explosion, cause a crash, cause an accident, cause a NVC, NVA. But in real life with human beings, it's a problem. It's not a car crash. It's the crash of the human cerebral cortex. Rationality, configuration of the moment, what to do, how to respond, because the CEO is on emotional damage, because the prefrontal cortex, the brakes are failing. Interpretation. Now, this can happen multiple ways. Trait development, experience in life, so to say, the Thorndike's rules, or TBI through physical injury. Yeah. Or dilapidation, given to you from mom and dad. Yeah. Meteorological. So think of the brake pedal there for a moment when you're listening to this show. How's your brake pedal? Is your emotion the trigger to everything that you do? All right, neural imaging, okay? Brain scans such as the PET or an MRI. We've all heard of these things, the whoop, 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 whoop thing you're in, with the big magnet going around. It's loud. You got to wear earplugs. People, I'm claustrophobic, can't get in there. Well, it's not that bad, trust me. It is shown that martyrs can have an 11 to 14% less prefrontal, right? Less prefrontal glucose metabolism, meaning the brake system is literally running on low fuel. The ability to stop the emotion, the ability to stop the response based on interpretation of the PFC, the amygdala. How is it receiving this information? What is the next act? What is the next response? It's kind of like going to a bad play, right? Going to a bad show at the theater. Oh my God, Bob, what's happening next? This show sucks. Somebody hit the brakes on it. So, the weak brake pedal is now a strong accelerator. Yes, it is. No control. You're losing it. Kind of like losing control of the car. You panic. This pattern means small and slight triggers. Self-endangerment, self-harm, homicidal reactions, violence, because the brain cannot pump the brakes fast enough or in time. The interpretation. Think of yourself. You see a knife, and you're at the local Japanese cuisine, volcanoes, onions, flag, but you see a knife, someone that's never been there before and sees the knife with the shrimp in your face, it's a threat. The prefrontal cortex is not working. Now the emotion's there. Now the brakes aren't working, and everybody's trying to keep little Stevie from jumping the pit and attacking Julio, the hibachi chef at the Japanese restaurant. Yes. Anybody ever been to a Japanese restaurant? We got one local to us. It's called Benihana's, and everybody in there is from Mexico or Spain or Ecuador or Venezuela. There's no one in there from Japan. And it's Benihana's from, Japan. Back to the show. So, the serotonin in our bodies. Our brain's chemical that acts like a cooling agent for hot temperatures. Think of the water in your thermostat in your car, okay? Serotonin. It's often low in violent individuals. And we're talking about meteorological research, okay? Rain, 2013, all the way up to, present data. That's, far back for the trigger, which would be 2013 for the course of investigation or research. But low serotonin, low violent individuals, making it harder to stop aggressive urges, decisions once they start. Anybody know anyone like that? They're mad, but they just don't get unmad. They stay mad. Even though the whole situation is calmed down like a big pack of Pavlov's puppy dogs. There's no reason for it anymore, but that one person shows up and they're the trigger. The orbital prefrontal cortex makes the bad bet. Yeah, because it's low on fuel, low serotonin. The orbital prefrontal cortex, the part of the PFC right above the eyes, okay? Judgment and reward. Based on what you're seeing, based on what you're interpreting. Is it a threat? Is it real? You're training yourself. But how do you train yourself? You're training yourself due to what your life experience is, due to what you've heard, due to what you've seen. Now, everybody's been in the inner city before versus the rural, the urban versus the rural, and those that are rural are, I'm never going back urban again. It's violent. Well, yeah, when a lot of people live that close together, jumbled up together, and you got anger, hate, animosity, low serotonin. Yes, even the meteorological and biological makeup of those that are impaired breeding. Yes, I said it, breeding. What do you expect? It's not rocket science. Research dictates that is a fact. Damiano, 1994, all the way up to Blair, the 2027, and I got some more. Anyway, if you want to copy the research, shoot me a email, Dr. Mike Lee G at gmail.com. Forgot it the other night. The Amangala hyperactivity, all right? The hair trigger, the alarm, the Amangala. Two almond-shaped portions of the brain, okay, that sound the alarms like a threat. All right, so think of, two little walnuts in your head. Those are the ones that are going to sound the alarm, but everything's already disrupted. Everything's already low. There's nothing there really enabling you. The prefrontal cortex is not working the way it's supposed to. Meteorological damage. Inherited gene, biological. Yes, genosis. Paternal, maternal. Yeah, the DNA. Inherited. So the alarms aren't working correctly. So those two little walnuts in the brain, the amygdala, aren't working anywhere. So they can become hyperactive, meaning that the amygdala screams danger, even though there's no danger there. It's kind of like, look up, there's a bump in the road. Nobody looks up, even though somebody screamed it. Stop. Ha ha ha. Stop. Cow. Road. Oh crap. Boom. People dead. Car. The perception of the danger. So the prefrontal cortex, the orbital front cortex, the bad judgments, it all works together, and it works together that fast, the blink of an eye. And it's all developmental. Now I know some people are saying, what is all of this crazy meteorological stuff have to do with bad actors and violence and bad people and murder and homicide? We're getting to that. Don't you worry. So, white matter. Okay, the brain disconnects. When the brain highways are broken, the neurological, the signals, the spark, think of an engine. Fuel, spark plug, energy, spark, pistons up and down. White brain matter tracks the brain's communication highways, period. That's what it does. It interprets what's happening with the brain's communication areas, not with the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, the limbic system, or the amygdala with the two walnut shells that aren't working correct as a bet together. But the white matter tracks what's going on. All right, it's kind of like a fusion disfusion. The diffusion tensor, the imaging, okay? The DTI, kind of like an MRI. It's a type of MRI that helps map these highways in your brain. Has anyone ever seen a picture of a brain or a DTI image and you see like the electro? So let's bring this up. Yeah, let's do this. Let's bring up a cool DTI image so that everyone can see what I'm talking about. DTI image. Because you see it on TV, you see it on all kinds of cool TV shows, especially scientific stuff, man. It's all like creepy cool. There it is right there, a DTI image. The white matter of the brain cell. It's monitoring everything that's going on, all right? The diffusion tensioners. DTIs in people with these problematic areas of the brain, prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, limbic system, amygdala not working correct, shows weaker connections between the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, all right? Psychopathic offenders, lack of the connection. There's a void. But the image you see right here is something that would be beautiful, something that would be like, that's perfect, that's mine. If you're watching this show, you're like, look, Bob, this guy's showing you my prefrontal cortex. Look how perfect it is. But let's see a damaged one. Let's see if we can see a damaged one. Oh yeah, we got some damaged ones. There you go. That's a beautiful right there. And it's not going to access. Look at that. Trust me, I'm going to find you guys a damaged one so that you can see it and say, holy crap. Yes, here we go. A damaged one. Sporadic damage all in it. So let's make this a little bigger so you guys can see it. Look how damaged that is. It's sporadic all over the place. Looks like your wiring system in your car, your home is just gone bad. So, it's the lack of the connection. The cortex of the psychopath. Prefrontal cortex. Interpretation. The amygdala not working well together. Nothing is firing together. Nothing's really working. So now, initially, physically, you have problems. Think of the argument. Think of that person you know that triggers fast, gets mad, or somebody that just goes to extreme violence, or somebody that watches this show and says, that's scaring me, I'm going to leave. It's not anti-ice riots to where somebody jumps on a car in a city and cuts their leg and is rushed off to the sidewalk for Antifa, trauma medic, anti-whatever medics to put a shield up. That's called a damaged prefrontal cortex. Because you're jumping on a car with everybody in the world videoing you. Yes. Even those activities that people think are beneficial are homicidal, psychopathic, because why? The white matter of the brain is not connecting everything together. All of the sparks and the signals aren't working. Something happened. Adverse childhood experience. ACE, ACE, adverse childhood experience. Now, a lot of people would compare historically and, research in a topic of extreme violence, murder, mayhem, macabre, dismemberment, macabre, mutilation. Jack the Ripper. Yeah, Whitechapel killer. The source of the damage. So to say, the scoreboard, the early trauma. Covering abuse, neglect, household dysfunctions. You watch mom beat up dad with a pan every day. You watch dad come home drunk, spend the money from work on gambling and prostitutes, and now the family is suffering, hungry, fights, arguments. Love is now violence. The hippocampus, the memory, the episodic memory, the limbic system, the drawer, prefrontal cortex, the diffusion of the white matter, the amygdala not working together. There's no means of slowing it down, or the serotonin brake pedal. Because the serotonin's diminished because the body and the brain has developed in such an environment right now to where the body and the brain has conditioned itself to the environment of development. Later down the road, someone grows up, becomes an adult, 20s, 30s. And then the violence happens. Why? Independent, free. I can make the choice on my own. I don't have to go off to the restrictive level of Thorndike's laws of learning that are being exhibited by my parents to me or enforced on me. Remember Thorndike's laws of learning? For those of you that want to find a good spot on that. Yeah, Thorndike's laws of learning. Let's shift over and go somewhere so you guys can see this. Let me see. I really want you guys to see this one. Now we're going to do this one here. Bam. Thorndike's laws of learning. Now, if you're all military type, you're going to look at this website and you're going to be like, oh, man, I remember that. I remember that website from specific schools, specific training schools, especially if you're a drill instructor. The drill pad. Type in the drill pad, right? Instructional Resource Library, and type in laws of learning. Yes, you'll love it. You'll like it. It'll get you right on point with this show and everything that we're talking about here. Even Pavlov, the crazy lunatic Russian Soviet scientist. The laws of primacy, the laws of Thorndike, they all apply. Let's move on to the ACE again. Significant areas, moments in life, the latter years of the violent behavior, the experience, the trigger, the training, the desensitization to it. Yes, the reduction of the serotonin. Think of the video games your kids play. Who sits down and throws their child in front of Grand Theft Auto, alcohol, naked hookers, death, guns, carjacking? Yes, let's put them there. Oh, the HPA. HPA within a person, okay? Pituitary adrenaline, okay? It's the brain's ability to send the body a stress circuit for release, all right? The release cortisol, the fight or flight syndrome, the HPA. Some of you've heard of it, some of you haven't. A lot of people would refer to it as HPA hormone. Cool, we get it. You know, simple linguistic society. This show is not a substitution for a classroom, mind you. Now, the brain gets recalibrated within its HPA by chronic childhood threats. Law of intensity, law of recency. Thorndike again. Where's the interest in it? How many times is this happening? How many times is it being embedded into the child, into the teen, into the young adult, into the older adult? So the brain and its HPA gets recalibrated by trauma, all stages in life, but starts typically in the childhood stages in life, but it leads to hyper-reactive decisions, hyper-reactive behavior, and leaves one emotionally numb. And predominantly, sometimes they both come together. Hyperactivity, emotionally numb, or just emotionally numb, no hyperactivity. Violence, but emotionally numb. Thus, ones say, well, they have no remorse. They're not sorry for what they did. They have no empathy. No, their HPA, the fight or flight syndrome, is deleted. It's gone. It's out. It's developed. The body stressors. The brain has been recalibrated. The white tissue, the PFA, the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, the hippocampus memory systems. It's trained. Now it knows that that act of violence is not as bad as, I don't know, how you interpret it to be. You interpret it as, oh my God, death-defying. The one committing the actual crime or the act it's nothing. No empathy, no remorse. Yes, yes, yes. Callous, unemotional CU traits, a childhood precursor to adult psychopathy. Yeah, marked by coldness, lack of guilt, shallow, non-affectionate, no remorse. Often grow in homes where children, the cries of the child are met with punishment instead of comfort. The cries of the child for help are met with, be quiet, go play a video game. I got no time for you. Children are best seen and not heard. How many of you have grown up with that before? I know I did. In Den Woods, we heard it all the time. Indian Woods. Those of you who don't know what Indian Woods is, it's a reservation. Yep, reactive attachment disorder, RAD. That's kind of critical here too for how the brain learns to commit violence and murder. No empathy, cause lack of concern for human life. The clinical condition caused by extreme early neglect where in childhood, young teen, older teen, even young adult with diminished capacity, or let's just be honest, in a society to where the education, the mind, the brain, the development wasn't priority. The bond doesn't occur naturally. There's no childhood bond. There's no teen bond. There's no early adult bond. Now you hear those say, well, they can't commit. I wonder why. Think of the environment they were raised in. Think of all of the derivatives that have now had to be placed onto a cognitive sheet of paper for you after you watch this show to put into perspective as to why someone now is acting with RAD syndrome, and it's linked now later in their life to aggressive behavior. The childhood relationships didn't work out. Why do you think the adult relationships would work out? That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen at all. The cycle of violence from victim to perpetrator, now it's coming. Children who are abused and neglected significantly, historical stats, law enforcement, sociology, the Department of Human Services, Child Services, Protective Services, more likely to be arrested for violent crimes as adults. Well, duh. After everything we've talked about here, imagine everything that I've talked about right here on this show for 30 minutes affecting a child, and now the child is an older teen, 17, 18, 19, about to be a young adult. Of course, nothing's wired or working correctly. Common sense. And if you don't understand it, go back to the show. Or if you want to copy the detail on it or the information on it, send me an email, drmikeleeg@gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to send it to you, PDF version. Use it scholarly. Life course persistence versus adolescent limitation, the offenders. All right. Basically, it's taxonomy, okay? It splits antisocial behavior into two paths. Life course persistence, LCP, in small groups, stay young, stay violent, commit crimes, teen violence, all right? Adolescent, AL, teens who rebel but grow out of it, AL, okay? LCP, stay there, do it. AL, you grow out of it. It's two different things. When there is this much dysfunction in the brain of the human being created by trait development awareness, trait development observation, trait development cognitive input, the laws of learning, Thorndike, Pablo, what do you expect? You're now going to have that LCP as an adult. It's continued. They're not going to grow out of it. The frontal cerebral cortex is done. It's too damaged. The white tissue, the white matter. Too much damage in the scan, right? Nothing's connecting. Nothing's registering correctly. It's always a threat. No empathy, no remorse, no recourse for decision making of this is a moral ought to. Greek, Plato, Othello, Pleiades. Ought to, ought not. Study of human behavior. Hostile attribution bias now occurs, seeing enemies everywhere. Kind of like schizophrenia. Hardening of the frontal cerebral cortex, right? Kind of that same way. Enemies everywhere. Hostile attribution bias. The mental habit of assuming that a neutral or natural act is a deliberate insult. Hey, we need you to come this way. Why? I'm not going to do nothing. I'm fine. I'm over here. You think I'm going to do something? It's kind of like Walmart. Anybody ever been approached by the people at Walmart? Can I see your receipt? My answer's always been no. What, you accusing me of shoplifting? Stealing your goods? Yeah, same way. So hostile attribution bias can be, something that's amusing. I mean, I'll tell the truth. I do it to Walmart people all the time. Sam's Club? No. My receipt, I bought it. But in this case, it's hostile attribution to where everything is a deliberate must, even though there is no threat, but there is an insult all the time. The insult of a threat, the insult of being, the insult of cognition, the insult of the person themselves. It's a learned abusive attribute, learned from abusive homes, learned from abusive relationships, even as adults, young adults and older adults. So it's kind of like a bumper car. You bump, you hit another car, you hit another car, you hit another car because you're continuing from one to another, a hostile attribute biased environment, one after the other. Now it's a planned attack for survival. Fight or flight, remember? The cycle of violence. Fight or flight. Making preemptive violence ideas. Response mechanism. Thoughts based on one's own interpretation of self-defense. And sometimes a person with all of these mediological, psychological, psychosis factors that are problems, it's a self-defense mechanism to where one will, in layman terms, displace, dissociate, and be alone by themselves to plan out all of this and even react according to the plan that is now inputted into the hippocampus limbic system, the filing drawers. The amygdala is not going to work right. The white tissue of the brain is not wired together right. The frontal cerebral cortex, the temporal side, is interpreting everything 100% entirely wrong. And now the hostile attribution of bias is happening. Yep. Man, it's better to learn something like this than it is to turn on the TV show and like watch a bunch of jackasses resist law enforcement. Yeah. I was watching one of the, ICE protests standing in front of the car. What is that going to do? All they're going to come do is push you out of the way. Stupid. Dumb. Breaking the cycle. What actually works? All right. A trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay. CBT. It's a type of talk therapy, communication. Sometimes works, sometimes don't. I mean, me, myself, not a fan of it. It rewires harmful thought patterns through linguistic venue. All right. The scan of the interpretation, the scan of the words, the communication back to the one exhibiting the hostile, attributive, biased. Everything's bad. Everything's bad against me. Everything's an insult. I must respond. So the CBT, it's a secure attachment. It's a stable adult can lower aggression in a maltreated youth, young teen, or younger adult, sometimes older adult. There's the hitch. It depends on the developmental level of the brain. Even for a child, the CBT, I've seen cases as a criminal investigator to where those that were forensic finding words or forensic interviewing specialists, CBT was diminished. The talk therapy was not working because of the pattern of abuse to the child, the young teen, the young adult. We did it for young adults too, if we could attribute it back to child or young teen or older teen, still juvenile. If the CBT is diminished, the linguistic word of the CBT therapist is worthless. It's kind of like saying big words that you do not understand and one expects you to respond. It's not going to happen. It isn't going to happen. We're live on a bunch of channels. If you got any comments, put them in the actual comment section. Or if you want some of the research, send it to me. Kind of did this as a start topic because it's summertime. Don't want to keep you here all night though. But we're going to close off with one more topic. The cold, calculated killer, the brain's empathy, the blind spot, what you've been waiting on. If you clicked on this to say, man, this guy's going to tell me how the brain learns to kill people, the psychopathy. A person's syndrome, all right, defines the glib or grim charm, the grandiosity, the grandness, the calculativeness, and the lack of remorse. Everything I've talked about here develops the psychopathy. That's where it starts. It's not the same level of generic BS crappy violence that you would see on the street or from dumbass protesters or people just out in society. This is a psychopath's commitment to disproportionate sharing of violence, premeditated, repetitive, habitual, recidivative performance. Why? It's ingrained. It's the psychopathy. It's the brain. It's the way the brain should work correctly now, even though it's not working correctly. It's the psychopath's norm. Violence. Setting up for the violence. It's kind of like the other, the last show we had, the clean or not clean killer. Organized, unorganized. FBI, you're behind on that. Way behind. You need to catch up with neuroscience research. The psychopathy checklist, okay? The CPLR. All right, the revised one. R means R, okay? The gold standard forensic rating tool developed by Hare. All right? That's a researcher, 2003. Scores traits like psychopathy, lying, shallow emotions, behavioral attributes, displacement, thought through behavior. It assesses the psychopathy in a legal setting for law enforcement, judiciary review, protective measures, child custody, diminished capacity, protective services. It's still legal. It doesn't have to be prosecutorial. All right. Don't think it's just for some guy or girl that's a mass murderer. Okay. It can be used legally across the board. All right. Brain scans reveal that psychopaths have often had reduced amygdala volume. I've already said that, meaning the process is a distress signal. Scans pick this up. It's like the victim is exhibiting terror internally, but you're not seeing it as the evaluator. Someone who watches a horror movie with you. They're cool, they're calm, collect, but inside they're scared shitless. Yes, that's what it is. The most way people wash out the background noise, the one with that signal distress trauma within the amygdala or the volume level or the connect not working together, the white tissue, the matter, frontal prefrontal cortex not working, it's able to be washed away and dismissed, or it's not observed, or at least noticed by those who do not know what they're looking for, kind of like those that miss suicide, right? Functional MRIs show that when psychopaths imagine moral violations, death, rape, mayhem, macabre, dismemberment, Pavlov's dog killing, holes in dogs' throats, all right? Their emotional empathy network, including arterial insulin and anterior cingulate brain areas, feel nothing. No response. There's no spark in that imagery. Nothing. Surprisingly quiet. You're not going to see anything. Nothing anterior, period, or singular. So what does that tell you? It's a problem that has been built over years, time, child, young teen, young adult, older adult. Thus, those ones that are those specialists and those cognitive interviews, those ones that are evaluating hairs, PCLR, those ones that are actually doing, the CBT interviews, the rewire, the speech, the linguistics to correct someone. It's a waste of time. Because the victim takes terror, meaning the one with the diminished capacity and the damage, and they're able to wash it away like it doesn't exist, just like flushing down background noise. How many of you can't sleep at night because you can't turn the brain off, the background noise in your head? It can be turned off. It's a normal day. I just killed someone. Time to get Fruity Links and go to sleep and have some cookies and milk. Interior and anterior, singular, nothing's working correctly. The MR shows that the psychopath's normal function is the not normal function. It's how they're developed. They stay on the surprisingly quiet side of violence. Instrumental violence, cold, goal-oriented, used to get something like money, control, power, psychological control. Yep. A psychopath's specialty. One would compare it to a narcissist. A psychopath and a narcissist are two distinct different things. A narcissist has everything working. They're using it to their ability. A psychopath does not. Yes, so that tells you what the real narcissists are versus the psychopath. So, whereas the reaction to violence by a psychopath, it's diminished. A narcissist is going to immediately recognize it and turn it around to, I witnessed this violence. Woe is me. I must have a CBT interview with somebody. I'm the victim now. You guys know somebody like that, right? The instrumental violence, the psychopath's specialty, okay? Whereas reactive violence, hot-blooded, lashing out, it's typical of other offenders, not the psychopath. Not the psychopath. People would think that the psychopath would be a blithering, insane, blabbering idiot across the spectrum of sociology. No. Cool, calm, collect. It's normal. It's no big deal. I'll just take it out on you later. Yes, because I'm going to go home and I'm going to mentally evaluate everything, and now you're the insult, you're the threat, you're the problem, and morally I'm going to take you out of society. It's the way the psychopath's going to look at it. The narcissist is going to take everything and shift it around to where it's not a psychological impairment. They're just a jackass and asshole, and they're a narcissist. All about them. There's nothing physically wrong. The deep dive, the snake suit, right? Psychopaths live in a snake suit every day. Every day. Not all psychopaths are killers and flagrant murderers. They're corporate interpersonal. Corporate, yeah. Anybody know a boss that you would think is a psychopath? Nothing. No emotion. Hard to read. No empathy. Little John cut off his hand at the bandsaw at the lumber mill, and the boss is like, get back to work. We have wood things to make. Whatever the hell a wood factory would make. I don't know, furniture, shit. So, the charm, the deception, the psychopath, the snake suit. The evil's in the head. The damage is in the head. Amygdala, white brain matter, central nervous system, prefrontal cortex, the triggers, the connect, the threat, the non-threat, the setup. It's hidden from you. They're normal. They're your interpersonal boss. They're your HR person. They're your manager. They're your husband, your wife, your lover, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your best friend, your significant other. And you wonder how someone can turn it off that fast. How does that not affect you? Maybe you learned a little bit of something today. The snake suit. And then there's, last but not least, we're going to talk about on this show, the genetic dice. Yes, the genetic dice. The heterogeneity, right? The callous trait. Twins, adoption. Studies suggest that psychopathy, okay, is substantially heritable, inherited. Even at ages 7, genetically, up to 10, 12 would be the cutoff. Large portions of, connected heterogeneity, cold remorse, no traits of love. The thoughtful environment of play is not really play, but it's a means of expression of violence. Now, when I say heterobility, it's the callous trait. It's the heterobility that's damaged. Now, I will say it. It's academic show, right? Is what it is. But inbreeding, those with meteorological imbalances, the genetic dice are construed much like research meteorologically. Older females, older men, impregnation, child with mental dilapidation. Dilapidation. This is what it is. Down syndrome would be one of the predominant occurrences. But the genetic dice roll, how does it apply? So now the genetic dice roll is there with the dysfunction of the brain, lack of developmental features of the amygdala, hippocampus, limbic system, prefrontal cortex, linguistic, education, nurtured, nature, witnessed, abuse, emotion. What do you expect? The brain has now developed the perfect, emotionless, snake suit, quiet, vibrant, interpersonal murderer. Anyone know anybody like that? Good grief, I hope not. Be a sucky day and a sucky dice roll for you when it's a bad day for them, wouldn't it? Shoot me an email if you want the rest. So if you looked at the person next to you and thought, are they really wanting to murder me based on everything that this guy just talked about tonight? You better make that assessment fast.